Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel, and we have finally made it to the last class top 10 video. I've been doing these all season and we are going to conclude with skill today. Now, as I've said up top on every video, two massive shout outs. First to Misty K, the artist and graphic designer extraordinaire for MCOC. She made these wonderful graphics that you're going to see throughout these videos for myself, for Vega, for a lot of the Illuminati. They look great. They are tailored to the way we play the game, and I just love this whole campaign that's going on. And of course, big shout out to Vega himself, who is the mastermind behind this whole thing. Amazing tier list that we all have good input put on from the Illuminati, and he's the one that encouraged us to do this and to make them our own personal list based on how we're playing the game, as well as sort of a more objective list going over like how we think people should rank based on a variety of situations. So as a little bit of a preview, the way I like to play the game currently, I'm all about fun. I'm all about the PvE content, especially that end game content, the pain, the Karinas challenges, the things that make you sweat, that make you work hard, read the nodes, practice. I love all that stuff a little bit more currently than the high tier alliance modes and battlegrounds. So when I'm ranking up, I'm thinking about utility, I'm thinking about usefulness for the classes that I have, and that very much predicts like where I'm going to be going in the game. A little bit less battlegrounds focused than you may see on some of the other tier lists. So yeah, format of this video, I will give you my top 10 with honorable mentions for my own personal champs, the way I'm playing the game, and then at the end I will share the graphic, including another top 10 that is sort of my more recommended, and we'll kind of spend a little bit of time talking about the differences. But yeah, skill class is a little bit of a weird one because some of the top champs in the skill class are only available as 6-star, and you'll kind of see how that shakes out. But without further ado, let's get into my personal top 10 list. So now when it comes to skill, I do have a few honorable mentions, and I'll list them all together. It's Mole Man, Valkyrie, and Bullseye. Now, Bullseye for a lot of people goes higher because of his two-way potential. I'm mostly ranking him as an attacker here because I personally just do not enjoy fighting him. I do not enjoy succumbing other people to have to fight him, so I've never ranked up a Bullseye. I guess if I got the 7-star, I might consider it, because I know he does have some cool stuff like the guaranteed crits and the, you know, ability to deal with miss and evade and things like that. Very good kit. Like, I know that he can do some great things in the skill class. It's just without really wanting him in a battlegrounds deck, I don't see as much use for content to rank him, but do want to shout out, you know, there are some incursions hacks that make him absolutely insane as well. So definitely an honorable mention, probably deserves to be higher for the average player. For me personally, he's just an honorable mention. Valkyrie suffers a little bit from the 6-star problem. I do think for a long time she was so good, one of the top 6-stars in the game, because of her ability to just bypass stuff and hit the block without ever having to knock them down, without ever having to make actual content with them or give them a ton of power. But that type of style is not as practical when you are a 6-star going up against a 7-star rank 3. So she does need to become a 7-star to get a higher ranking. But man, I have videos on her. I've used her a lot in the past. She has been one of my favorite champs in the past. Another thing kind of knocking her is she does need Sig 200 to get a very reliable unstoppable counter, and that's not super practical at the 7-star level anyway. So I do think her stocks have gone down, and she's just going to be an honorable mention. And then Mole Man, again, kind of like Bullseye, I look at him as a two-way. So for battlegrounds, he gets a lot higher ranking. But for me personally, I've never really enjoyed playing him. I don't sort of love the way he has to choose the utility that he has. Like he loses his true accuracy to get more damage, and he loses his purified to go into frenzy. And while he is a nuke and he has great damage and he has access to these little pieces of utility, there's something about his play style where I find I just don't play him as smoothly. I don't think his flow is as good. But again, for battlegrounds, very good champion, especially a 7-star. And you know, he does have very reliable access to all that utility and damage. So like, he is a quite good champion. I couldn't leave him off. It's just for the way I'm playing the game, he's only an honorable mention. So with that, let's get into the top 10 for my personal list. Number 10 for me is going to be Shang-Chi. Now, Shang-Chi is pretty amazing. And just in terms of like everything he does, he has a really reliable slow. He has an unblockable, which deals with auto block, obviously, but like, you know, just having the openings is really helpful. He has a long stun, which can help you apply the slow and keep the slow up. And then also he's got these cleanses, which are great. Cleanse, of course, for Jessica Jones is perfect, and for many other situations, having cleanse instead of just a regular purify allows you to defer it so that you can cleanse later, or just in general, it's good for certain effects. So I do think that Shang-Chi is amazing. He has access to guaranteed crits, works really well with the Black Panther relic, and then of course there are ways to just build up his chi charges forever and do massive special 2s that'll pretty much kill any champion. Always been great. Like, he's always sort of suffered from the jack of all trades, master of none problem, because like he does so much that it's sort of like, well, where do I even want to use him? But you know, now that he's a 7-star, he does come up every once in a while, and for general questing, he can do a variety of matchups that aren't even just the normal skill versus science ones, and is just sort of like a great skill champion, like one of the best champions that came out about 4 years ago and still has relevance in the game today. Really good champion, comes in at number 10. All right, number 9 is going to be Patriot, and Patriot is still pretty new, so a lot of people don't have him, but I do know a lot of smart players that I'm friends with really like him. He has sort of like how Kingpin is the one that feeds off of the debuffs and like feeds themselves debuffs. He has all that, but they have the clause where inequity is not going to reduce his damage. His reversal mechanic can lead to some pretty insane damage as well, and I just like he is the take on like the modern Kingpin in my sense. Like, he's not as broken as Kingpin, he doesn't have as much range as Kingpin, but he is available as a 7-star. He's more balanced, and in my opinion, he's a little bit more fun to play. So he's got even more than that going on. Like, he can counter photon better than just about anybody in the game as well, with the vigilance and things like that. But yeah, I absolutely love Patriot, and he's one of my top asks for champions. I don't know a lot about him at this juncture, but at the same time, I know that DLL made him, and some smart players really like him, so he probably goes higher on the list as time goes on, but I couldn't, you know, not talk about him, and he does make it at number 9 on my list. All right, next up we've got Mantis at number 8. And Mantis is a little flimsy, and she is a little bit nuke sort of battlegrounds focused for me, which is why she's this low. But she, again, is a really good photon counter with the Tranquilize. She was the first Tranquilize champion, which does come up to just completely reduce the ability accuracy of debuffs and never have to worry about them at all, is quite good. And, you know, the way her AI manipulation works, I almost kind of like doing the Intimidates first and get a bunch of those. You can sort of completely bypass the need to do any intercepting if you do 2 Intimidate cycles, but you could also, you know, try to be a little bit more aggressive to make it go faster. But the way that special 2 works is just absolutely nuts. It'll nuke just about anything, and you know, if it was just battlegrounds focused, I think she goes higher. But I think the fact that Tranquilize has abilities to deal with so many different science champions besides photon, and not just in like a nuking sense, she does deserve a spot for questing and for fun as well to be my number 8. All right, coming in at number 7 is going to be Crossbones. Crossbones is extremely powerful. He doesn't crit, which is always nice, has access to lots of furies. He, at high sig, has one of the very reliable shrugs, even though it's not 100%, most things aren't going to get through. And then also, because of the defensive ability accuracy that can go beyond negative 100%, it can basically go on infinitely depending on how many furies you have. Even in situations where you're trying to control debuffs, you can just deal with them with the ability accuracy and not even have to relate to the shrug. So that makes him quite a good champion, even unduped. And, you know, the problem with him is sort of the skill ask of landing those heavy attacks. Any champ that needs to be landing a ton of heavy attacks, aside from Onslaught, where the damage just keeps ticking away, I'm just not a big fan of landing heavies and breaking the rhythm of the fight. Like, I would rather continually, you know, bait specials, throw my specials, and alternate. But, you know, with him, you really do need to land heavies to keep those pauses up, or just be extremely aggressive, because there's only certain ways to get furies. You have to either get them as a crit replacement, or you need to be dashing back and do the, you know, the holding block, or you need to be throwing special ones. You can certainly just special one spam, but eventually those Furies are going to fall off. You're going to lose a little bit of rhythm, so you do need to land the heavies. What I see from the most talented Crossbones players is a way better result than the way I'm playing him. So he definitely makes my top 10. He is my number 7, but the way I play the game, I find him a little clunky and difficult to maintain, but I cannot deny how powerful he is, and if I practiced a little bit more, I bet he would go higher on the list. Now, the next one is going to be my personal sort of go-to champion for the skill class, and she comes in at number 6 as Elsa Bloodstone, and I do think she is still relevant in today's game. My pitch on her has always been there are no compromises with her. All of her damage and utility are present all the time. The way her purified non-damaging debuffs works, they just naturally happen. You don't have to set anything up. They're just going to go away. And that's so helpful for champions like Void or anybody that's placing annoying like weaknesses or fatigues or things like that, or like a glancing or armor break or any of these annoying debuffs. They're just going to get shrugged, which is phenomenal. But on top of that, she has a really good cold snap. It can get refreshed with a heavy attack if you have the Winter Soldier relic, and just good damage, different damage sources, and the first champion to have that sort of evade counter. I wish that they gave her the Kate Bishop style where they get stunned, because Inequity does still kind of punish her in the face a little bit. But she has fallen off a little bit just because, time. She's a 2019 champ, so a lot has happened since then. But as one of my rank 3s and one of my favorite champions, and as someone who's really fluent playing her, good evade counter, really good shrugging counter, good enough damage, access to openings, and a sort of more skilled style of playing. And I do like the way the Behemoth Busters and the Incinerate do different types of red damage. Plus, she just has a massively high crit rate. She's going to be critting on almost every hit when you have the crit stat focus as well. She makes for a very good 7-star, and it's just always been one of my favorite champions. So while she may not make it to the objective list a little bit later, and I do sort of acknowledge that she's fallen off a little bit, for my personal list, she has to make it this high. And of course, Elsa Bloodstone is going to be my number 6. All right, coming in at number 5 is going to be Black Cat. There are so many situations where her defensive ability accuracy and the sabotage debuff come in handy. We know that Black Widow Deadly Origin is the first champion to have sabotage, and it just sort of missed the mark. There's not really a good way to use it, except for sometimes it comes up on defense when you're fighting against her. But for the most part, the way that it works for Black Cat, you just combo enough, you get a certain amount of defensive ability accuracy, you throw the special 2, get the sabotage on them. It is just absolutely 100% stopping everything, and it will stay paused as you continue to hit them. It'll stay paused with the help of the Black Widow relic itself, and she just has massive crit damage and bleed damage and critical bleed damage, especially as she's cooking with all of her abilities in the sabotage itself. She does have a little bit of a skilled play style to maximize her damage. You're going to want to do stuff like heavy counter, intercept, and keep track of where you're passing the card back and forth. But the truth of the matter is, if they have a lot of abilities on hit, you don't have to do any of that. You just need to basically get to the special 2 with the card on yourself, throw the card on them, get the sabotage up, and then you're golden. So she can definitely go beyond just your normal science type matchups. She does work really well for Photon. She can work for a variety of other champions for the science class, but for example, Hulkling, right? Or so it's not just about Thing and things like that. Champions like Hulkling that are getting all these buffs every time you hit them, she's just going to sabotage them on every hit. And there are just so many champions like that who have these on-hit abilities that she's just absolutely going to punish, as well as bleed them out with her massive critical bleeds along the way. So she's one of the most fun champions. She's a rank 3 for me, and I may rate her a little higher than others. She doesn't work for everything, but with the Black Widow relic, she does actually have a little bit more range, and there are just more and more scenarios that you can think of where she does come in handy that she's my number 5. All right, we're going to talk about number 4 and number 3 together because they are still 6 stars and they're somewhat interchangeable, but I'm giving Kingpin number 4 and Nick Fury number 3. Now, skill, as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, is a little weird because those two are arguably the best two skill champions in the game, but they are likely not coming out as 7 stars anytime soon. So Kingpin has just like the ridiculous will shrug, any debuff, doesn't even really need the hood synergy or anything. He just eventually will go to his like overpower phase where all the debuffs get cleansed as soon as you have 8. So even if you're on hazard shift, if a few of them land on you, who cares, because in a couple combos they're going to be all gone anyway. Massive combat power rate. He has a little bit of ability reduction. He has unstoppable for openings. He has an additional fury on top of the overpower. It's just, you know, he does what he does, is an absolute tank as well. If he came out as a 7-star, it would be kind of wild. He doesn't even really need the awakening. It just kind of helps him ramp up a little bit faster through the first cycle, and then, you know, keep some of his little rage debuffs and stuff like that. So yeah, Kingpin is just nuts, and he still comes up as a 6-star. And then Nick Fury is still Nick Fury. I mean, the whole second life situation, it just gives you like a full mulligan and you come back at like quadruple damage. So I mean, what is that even? And then, you know, throw in the Petrify Mastery, throw in the Deep Wounds Mastery, you just parry them and you do 4-hit combos. That light bleed is going to do absolute insanity. So yeah, he is overbalanced and probably never going to come out as a 7-star, but he still does Nick Fury things. And of course he does have stuff like evade and miss and disorient countering and things like that in his kit. He can get rid of non-damaging debuffs by knocking them down. You can get the internal bleed. There's just so much that he can do. I don't use him that often, but he's still freaking Nick Fury, and he's never going to not be in the top 3 when it comes to the skill class, even on my own personal list. So that's going to be that one. Actually, I think on my graphic I had them backwards. I had Nick Fury as number 4 and Kingpin as number 3, but in my opinion they're really interchangeable. So those are 3 and 4, and then number 2 for me is going to be Chi-Ilth. Chi-Ilth is so cool, man. She is so cool. She has access to the grit. She has access to tranquilize. So those are some like modern skill abilities countering unstoppable like Valkyrie can, and then also like a pretty strong tranquilize like we see with Mantis and Kate Bishop. Love to see that. But she's all about the bleed damage and the cleanse, right? Cleanses, as I mentioned with Shang-Chi, is very, very powerful in this game. And, you know, she also has a regen off of the special 3 that's extremely powerful as well, which is kind of nuts. But yeah, in these longer fights, you basically just are doing things like placing your bleeds, countering with your heavy attack at times, doing medium attacks to get the bleeds, doing heavy attacks to get the bleeds, and just sort of naturally over time you're going to ramp up to 10 spirit charges, and then at that point your bleeds are doing massive damage. So she's going to be really important for, I think, the Necropolis challenge coming up. I think Wong and you know, she are going to be doing some great stuff in that challenge for the 10-year anniversary. But yeah, she is proven to work for long form content. She has proven to work great for war. She's proven to just have like good utility in the skill class and good damage, a little bit of survivability with the regen as well. And yeah, in my opinion, she's the second best skill champion in the game, especially at the 7-star level. If you don't imagine that Kingpin and Nick Fury even exist, then she's definitely way up there, and one of the best additions to the game last year. Like, she just is an absolute beast of a skill champion and good for a variety of fights. And then not to mention, if you're going up against a Gamma champion, she's quite good. So that includes, you know, the Hulks and, you know, Leader and things like that. She's pretty amazing for, and that's also good to have as well. Just a little bit of a bonus that will help her out. And then finally, number 1, I don't think there's much surprise here. It's still Kate Bishop. Just the cold snap damage is just absolutely insane, and the way her counter evade works with the, you know, the stun, the way there's sort of AI manipulation in the corner, and she also has the crush so that you can just continually get in there. She has her own tranquilizer, her own caltrops and things like that as well. And we saw what she could do in the Necropolis. Like, she was the MVP for sure. Just unbelievable damage if you're playing skilled enough. And she does take a little bit of skill. It's not just about the perfect releases, but she does take a lot of spacing management and making sure you can land those heavies. But, you know, whether it's a small health pool, a medium health pool, or a long health pool, she's got it down. As long as they're not cold snap and bleed immune, which, you know, is somewhat rare but does come up every once in a while, she can be stopped. But overall, even as a 6-star, she is my go-to champion when it comes to the skill class, mostly because of the damage, but the utility she brings, it eclipses some of the other evade counters. It eclipses some of the other debuff control counters if you have the Tranquilize up. You know, like I remember in in Necropolis, like against Cap Sam and Captain America Infinity War, like and Sandman, like no debuffs were getting on her, right? Because that Tranquilize can be really powerful as well, which we love to see. And yeah, like, dude, the cold snap, it's just crazy when you get the critical cold snaps plus the fatigues and everything, the way it works together. She's absolutely crazy. So to me, she still makes it to number 1. And with that, we're going to show the full list with my recommended champions as well. So as a reminder, the personal is the way I'm playing the game. The recommended is just sort of a more objective list for like a variety of players of different styles of play, including battlegrounds and things like that. And you know, the main difference, Shang-Chi, Patriot, they're a little bit lower. I do add Falcon, who, you know, is unmistakably one of the most boring but effective champions in the game. Just dash back and you get that full defensive ability accuracy reduction and big crit numbers and guaranteed bleeds and things like that. So, you know, Falcon must be talked about because he's old reliable here. But, you know, Bullseye a little bit higher, Mole Man a little bit higher. Everybody else is kind of where they were, just shifted around a little bit. I think there's a little bit of consensus here between my two lists on the skill class. But yeah, the main message about skill class is like the most powerful ones, Kate, Nick, Kingpin, all not available as 7-star. If they did come out as a 7-star, this list might change a little bit. Who knows? But with that, let me know what you think. This is going to be the final one of my top 10s for the classes. I'm going to try to get out a top 10 or top 15 overall as well, but we'll see how much time that's going to take. Just very grateful for this opportunity to do this, to have this kind of discussion with you guys and with Vega and the rest of the Illuminati. It's been an absolute blast. Make sure to check out Vega's videos. Make sure to make it to Misty K's graphics as well. She does amazing work. Leave a comment, share, let me know what I got wrong, what you disagree with, what you do agree with, and love chatting about that kind of stuff. So thank you so much for checking this out, and I'll catch you in the next one.